Assalamu alaikum. You're watching Views and News and I'm Faisal Rehman live from our Islamabad studios. Today we'll be talking about this very interesting developing story, and that is regarding the Indian state terrorism that they are actually doing in Pakistan. One side is about using the Afghan soil. Second is about those who are already present in Pakistan, the spies and the terrorists supported by the Indian intelligence agency, RAW. And there was this recent incident where there was this bomb blast that was in Lahore and close to the residence of one of the senior religious political leader. But having said that, the interesting part was that according to the footages that were in fact obtained, they got to know about who was involved, and then later on our intelligence agencies also made sure that this is how it was conducted, this was the reason and who was behind it, and everything was crystal clear. If you remember what Moeed Yusuf, the National Security Advisor, recently in his presser said, very clearly he talked about the overall situation in Pakistan and how India is involved. We talk about this hybrid war, or I would say the approach of the Indian is very third class, because this is not actually hybrid war, this is to destabilize the neighboring country. Perhaps they won't be able to succeed, but our intelligence agencies as well as our men in uniform, I would say, they have done a brilliant job to counter that. Before we introduce our guests, we have prepared a report. Let's watch that, and after that there is a statement of the National Security Advisor, Moeed Yusuf. Take a listen to that also.
Since ultra-right BJP's Narendra Modi took the office of the Prime Minister of India, the state's terroristic tint boosted considerably in their domestic as well as international political policies and approaches. The terroristic instinct, which seeped into the roots of the Indian foreign policy, allegedly remained directed towards Pakistan through the tactics of international propaganda as well as state-sponsored terrorism. The Indian state-sponsored terrorism and propaganda tools remain evident in the international arena because Modi's administration remained overt in baselessly blaming Pakistan in United Nations and Shanghai Cooperation Organization, as well as by cleverly manipulating the FATF. Previously, Pakistan remained exposing that how Indian-sponsored terrorism is hurting the stability and security matrix of Pakistan when Kulbhushan Yadav was arrested by Pakistan, and he accepted the responsibility of facilitating many terrorist activities in Pakistan and especially in Balochistan. However, the world organizations mostly turned their eyes blind towards India's international criminal attitude despite unquestionable proof. Recently, to highlight this face of India, Pakistan Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi and DGI-SPR Major General Babar Iftikhar showed the irrefutable evidence regarding Indian financial and material sponsorship of multiple terrorist organizations, including UN-designated terrorist organizations Jamaatul Ahrar, Baloch Liberation Army and Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan. Moreover, National Security Advisor Moeed Yusuf also told that a high-profile investigation has identified the recent car bombing in Lahore that killed 3 people and injured 22 others in Lahore was masterminded and handled by RAW, the Indian intelligence agency.
Now that was a report prepared by the production team. Now take a listen to what the National Security Advisor Moeed Yusuf said.
I want to make sure that our message is heard very clearly, that this particular incident on the 23rd of June in Lahore, we have concrete evidence and intelligence, including financial and telephone records, that point to direct Indian sponsorship of these terrorists. Through forensic analysis, electronic equipment which has been recovered from these terrorists, we have identified the main mastermind and the handlers of this terrorist attack, and we have absolutely no doubt or reservation in informing you that the main mastermind belongs to RAW, the Indian intelligence agency, is an Indian national and is based in India. I would also like to remind everyone that the Indian use of territory and people of third countries, which actually embarrasses other countries, is not new. We have been constantly reminding the world of Indian actions, including a detailed dossier that was put out last November with details, minute details of finances, of actions, of support coming from India. We've also seen the European Union's Disinfo Labs report after that, not a Pakistani report, an international reputed organization that showed how hundreds and thousands of fake outlets were being used to malign Pakistan, to spread misinformation about Pakistan, and to hide what is actually a clear terrorist sponsorship by a state against another state in our region.
Now, a very straightforward statement by the NSA. He says that we have the forensic evidence, we have the telephonic conversation recorders also, which is in Pashto, but it was translated when a person was trying to talk to another person, and he was telling the other individual how this operation was conducted, and he was monitoring that the face of that particular person wasn't very clear, but the black car could have been seen, and so on and so forth. So eventually our intelligence agencies, I think they did a brilliant job when they got hold of those individuals, and finally this result is right in front of you. Now, to talk about this, let me quickly introduce you to our panelists. We have with us on my right is Air Vice Marshal retired Ikramullah Bhatti Sahab, who's a senior analyst. Thank you so much, Bhatti Sahab, for your time, sir. And on Skype we have with us Dr. Professor Riffat Hussain Sahab, who's a strategic analyst, and we also have with us Hamid Khan Sahab, who's a senior journalist. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time, sir. Now, let me put this question to you, sir, very straight. What does India want? Simple as that, sir. What's brewing in their mind? What exactly BJP is thinking, sir? Is it the Akhand Bharat concept, or what exactly do they have in their mind?
Well, you see, the Indian objectives vis-a-vis Pakistan have been known for quite a while now. And we go back to 1947 or 1946, that Indians never accepted for Pakistan to come into existence. And Nehru is on record having committed to his party that he has agreed to the creation of Pakistan, or the separation of India, not with the hope, but with the confidence that Pakistan is not going to last more than 3 months, and it's going to fall back into their lap and get absorbed into India again. And thereafter, we know that they have been pursuing the policy of Akhand Bharat, and they have been always hoping and working for Pakistan getting merged back into India. And it was only in the time where Vajpayee visited Pakistan, he went to Minar-e-Pakistan, and on which, of course,
The Lahore Declaration.
Lahore Declaration, in which there was a huge protest and criticism in India as to why did he visit that place where Pakistan resolution was passed, because according to a viewpoint in India, his visit to Minar-e-Pakistan was in fact recognition of Pakistan.
Correct.
Which clearly indicated that at least till that time, the Indians had not reconciled with the idea of a separate independent Pakistan. And ever since then, we have seen that Indians have been on this spree of creating conditions wherein they can encourage unrest in Pakistan, create terrorist activities, and of course create problems for Pakistan internationally, trying to isolate it. And again, with the hope that the people of Pakistan should get so frustrated, so disappointed, that they should look forward to getting back to India and uniting as one country, or so-called Akhand Bharat. And this has been going on ever since, and now with the BJP and Modi have again raised this rhetoric, and we know that BJP or Modi came into power again with this agenda of creating Hindu supremacy, and of course the existence of Pakistan is a contradiction to their viewpoint, and hence they look forward to converting everyone into Hindu, and of course
that's been happening in so many areas. Force
within India, and to begin with, of course, they like to clean their own country and of all others other than Hindus, and they have of course gone on to convince their own people that India is now a regional power, if not an upcoming superpower, and they find that Pakistan is the only trouble or only the roadblock in their desire to rule the region. And like they have done with other smaller countries like Nepal or Sri Lanka or Sikkim, Bhutan, or even to an extent with Bangladesh, and they find that Pakistan is the only hurdle. So they have created, they're trying to create conditions wherein Pakistan should be subjugated and should of course play a second fiddle to them. And unfortunately we have the European countries, especially the US, who are going along with this Indian agenda. And we know that India has been trying and making several attempts to achieve this goal, and the Western world led by the US has overlooked this and in a way given a consent to or an encouragement to the Indians to continue with this. And we have seen that Pakistan gave a dossier with enough evidence wherein it was proved beyond doubt that Indians were attempting to subjugate Pakistan. They were attempting to create terrorist activities in Pakistan, and of course create trouble against their neighbor. And unfortunately it wasn't received well, or it did not create any sort of a situation for Pakistan where India could have been checked or taken notice of. And we feel then, and we find that the interests both strategic and financial that these countries have with India, which actually prevents them to take any notice of Indian activities in the region vis-a-vis Pakistan. And India of course feels free to continue its spree of creating trouble for its neighbors, especially Pakistan.
Now that is perhaps something very alarming, not only for Pakistan, I would say for the entire region, because when you talk about destabilizing a certain country, obviously it is going to have the effect on other countries as well. Now Afghanistan, since it is being used against Pakistan, I mean even in this particular case there is this Afghan individual involved. So the point is that there seems to be a very direct connection between the Indian intelligence agency and the Afghan intelligence agency, or even at the government level, I would say. This is how they are operating. And interestingly, now the kind of development that we have witnessed in Afghanistan, that is going to be a very tough time for Pakistan and perhaps for Iran as well. Let me take this point to Dr. Riffat Saab. Dr. Saab, now you must have heard what Air Vice Marshal Bhatti Saab said, but now I want your comment. Obviously things are not that great. There was this halt regarding the terrorist activities in Pakistan. I think hats off to our intelligence agencies, but sir, this particular incident in Lahore, thank God that many of the people, they did not lose their lives, but could have been even worse than that. And this is going to continue, that's what we believe. Now the Indian National Security Advisor Ajit Doval has a very clear-cut plan. He says that we'll use the individuals from their own country. So it means that people who are already here, the network is there, they have a proper setup, they are financing them, they're providing the material support and otherwise also. Now a challenge and a half in the coming days for Pakistan, and especially in the perspective of what is happening in Afghanistan. Dr. Riffat, your take, sir.
Well, thank you very much, Faisal. To gauge the depth of the Indian animosity and hostility towards Pakistan, let me take you back to 1971 war, during which a war cabinet, which was presided over by the assassinated Prime Minister of India, she laid out three goals vis-a-vis Pakistan. One was the liberation of Bangladesh, because they thought it should weaken Pakistan. Number two, and that is something which is very important, is that they said that we are going to destroy Pakistan's military potential, so Pakistan can never pose a military threat to India. And number three, uh, according to their war objectives, that they wanted to sort out the boundary line on the southern part of which was the Kashmir. So these three goals have constantly informed India's strategy towards Pakistan. Number one. Number two is that Ajit Doval, you have made several references to him, uh, he's intelligence master, and he has laid out his agenda in terms of Ajit Doval doctrine, and his objectives are very clear. Do not let Pakistan do not give Pakistan the breathing space, and keep Pakistan on tenterhooks all the time. So these two, if you combine these two sets of objectives, so the Indian strategy is very clear. They play the destabilization game vis-a-vis Pakistan, and these incidents that you are referring to, the outside Johor town, in which three people were killed and 24 were injured. Luckily, this was, if it would have gone as planned, then the loss would have been much greater. So I look at this incident as a manifestation of India's ill will towards Pakistan, and Pakistan should be under no illusion to expect any kind of goodwill from India in general, and particularly from the Modi government. And Pakistan has to prepare on an emergency basis, on a war footing, a counter response. How are we going to deal with this Indian offensives against Pakistan? Of course, India doesn't want to fight a conventional war, because they know that conventional war can easily escalate into a nuclear war. They do not want that. But short of that goal, or short of that objective, India will do everything to destabilize Pakistan. And my assessment is that India will not be sitting easily next to Pakistan, as long as Pakistan military or Pakistan's high command is very much in charge. So the Indian objectives are very clear, right from 1971 up until now, and the disintegration of Pakistan, which was carried out by Prime Minister Indira Gandhi, was the classical strategy in which she had fired the opening salvo against Pakistan.
Now, very well explained, sir. Now, coming to you, Hamid Khan Saab, I mean, how long can they test the patience of Pakistan, sir? We have got so many, dossiers that we have presented to the United Nations, to the heads, to the American president, and so on and so forth, and nothing has been done. I mean, no report has been published regarding what the Indians are doing in the region, and particularly in Pakistan, with very strong evidence also. Now, the point is that when we see that what is our breaking point, obviously nuclear war is not a solution. Even war itself is not a solution, sir, but how long can we afford these kind of tactics, that have been applied on Pakistan? We all know about the Ajit Doval's doctrine and the kind of mindset he has, and how he has in fact planned to destabilize Pakistan, either through the Afghan border in the KP region, or perhaps in Balochistan as well. And now cities like Lahore, they are not even safe, and this has been happening for quite some time. My point is now, sir, what should be the counter strategy we need to adopt? Should we keep on, getting exposed to such threats and keep on issuing statements, or something tangible needs to be done? Hamid Khan sir.
Thank you very much, Faisal. I mean, to be honest, what Pakistan, thank you very much, Faisal.
Please.
I really appreciate the way AVM Saab and Dr. Saab has briefed the past of India and their motives all the time since the creation of Pakistan. I would say, unfortunately, Pakistan is a bit unlucky to have a cunning uh, neighbor like that, like India, who has no moral or ethics value when it comes to counter your opponent or enemy, even. India has used every lower level moral things against Pakistan. Where, they have used charity organizations to malign Pakistan. They have used NGOs against Pakistan. EU Disinfo Lab was full of all these reports where India has no moral values plotting against all the plots against Pakistan. You're right. Pakistan has to not only keep exposing Indian agenda against Pakistan, rather Pakistan has to go one step further, and Pakistan has to go into United Nations eventually to put some kinds of sanctions against India now, because India is doing a state terrorism, and United Nations the memorandum is very clear that if any state is directly involved in the terrorism, we have proven through the Kulbhushan Yadav, we have proven through the Surbijit Singh time as well in 80s. So India has a long history of terrorism, state terrorism in Pakistan, using the neighbor countries like Afghanistan and Iran. So Pakistan have a very strong case to present in the United Nations, in the Security Council, in the War Crime Court as well, that where India is doing such atrocities against Pakistan, Pakistan has to tell the world that this is the time now. The world has to put sanctions, a kind of economical sanctions on India, because India is doing a straight state sponsored terrorism. Faisal, now I appreciate government of Pakistan that this is the right way, that I mean on a minister level, on NSA level, on a security agencies level, and on a prime minister level, we are clearly mentioning the name of RAW and Indian involvement in it. This is how we have to move forward, because if our enemy is that low, and if our enemy is that cunning, where they use women, where they use charity organizations, where they use all kind of propaganda
Hamid
against
Saab,
Pakistan.
as they say that everything is fair in love and war. So the point is that
Yeah, but
we are practically not having a proper war on the borders with India, but this
yeah,
is the modern
yeah,
warfare, which we call the hybrid
but
warfare. Simple as
yeah,
that. So
I
they'll do
I
anything and
agree with
everything.
you. I agree with you, Faisal, but still, I mean, I just find it so hard that I mean, whole world, the Western world, close their eyes when it comes to the criminal acts done by India. Like in EU Disinfo Lab, it is so clear that how they misguided the European Member of Parliament, how they misled the United Nations, how they conducted so many seminars where they had the presiding person who has died before 6 years, and they put his name as presiding the seminars. I mean, this is unbelievable that how the Western world closes its eyes when it comes to the war crimes, when it comes to the ethical crimes of India. Now, this is the, I believe that this is the time when Pakistan and the supportive countries of Pakistan, like Turkey, like China, and all the countries, they have to be united against India in United Nations, in Security Council, in European Union, because India has very strong lobby. You know, I know. Then there is only one way. As an international foreign affairs expert, I only suggest one thing, that we have to counter the propaganda with a solid evidence and solid propaganda based on facts against India. And we have to build up our case where we can explain the world that if India will carry on doing that, it will not end up to on a conventional war. It will end up to a something bigger than a conventional war, because there is a limit when Pakistan will bear all this terrorism from India. Pakistan will have to respond it, and Pakistan will respond it on its choice, as we did it in past as well, when it comes to an open war or anything, so-called surgical strike in Pakistan. But Pakistan is Now this is the right time to expose Indian false propaganda against Pakistan and state terrorism, directly targeting the cities and innocent citizens of Pakistan. Now we have
I think
no
Hamid Khan
time
Sahab, we have
to
already
stop.
delayed it. This Disinfo Lab or the other such features, they were in operation since the last 15 years or so. I think we have been
Exactly,
waiting too long.
694
This is exactly what we should have done when we were the, the front line ally in the war on terror. I think Americans could have done a lot, but I think we were busy doing something else. Now, coming to you, AVM Saab, one thing is very clear, that we need to have a proper counter policy, sir. If they are, sort of trying to destabilize Pakistan, sir, and we all know, whether you talk about Kulbhushan Yadav or the recent incident or the attack on the army public school where more than 160 children were slaughtered. I mean, that was the turning point, I would say, sir. But still, nothing has been done as such, sir. You talk about the 20-point agenda regarding the National Action Plan, so we all know where we stand at that. I'm not saying that only the registration of the madrasa is going to be important, but what I'm saying is that you need to counter. There's an enemy. There is a country that is being used against you. As far as Iran is concerned, obviously that issue regarding Kulbhushan Yadav also linked them, and then even this one where the money came from and all. And this is now our Prime Minister called the newly elected Iranian president, sir, and I'm sure they must have discussed this issue as well. And if you remember, sir, Kulbhushan Yadav's issue was also highlighted, and he was caught and made the headlines when the Iranian president, Mr. Rouhani, was visiting Pakistan. So don't you think, sir, this is high time that Iran should be also, told that this is what is happening, this is what we can't afford. If you want to be a part of CPEC, we have tried our level best to get you into that group, whether it's the SCO or the Chinese allies, let's put it this way. But you need to also look into the issues that is becoming a threat to us.
Certainly, in the present day world, a lot has to be fought in the diplomatic field, and for that, of course, the most important thing is that a country has to be relevant on the world stage. And as it is said, that you will be seen, you will be heard according to your size, and by size, I mean how strong you are, how united you are, how political strength the country has, economic strength the country has. But unfortunately, Pakistan is politically fragile, economically weak, and of course, it is yet to develop its image in the world, which was very badly affected in the last decade, wherein of course India was able to succeed in convincing the world that Pakistan is a country which is exporting terrorism, and the Americans went
because
down.
sir, at that time we were the in fact only country which was suffering from terrorism.
Yes.
Look at the number of people we lost, look at the financial losses that occurred. I think, sir, we totally failed to market our agenda or a point of view, isn't it?
Quite true, because whereas we lose 70,000 people, we incur a loss of over 150 billion dollars, and yet we are told that we have to do more, and we took that.
Double standard, because morality doesn't exist in the present day, sir.
And I think in the today's world, new groupings are taking place, new lines are being drawn, and it is an opportunity for Pakistan to of course to mobilize the OIC, to mobilize its friends, be it Malaysia or Turkey, and of course China and Russia, wherein we should be able to get their support in convincing the rest of the world about the situation that we are faced with, and the efforts that we have done and the losses that we have incurred or suffered during our war on terror. And I think this is going to be an uphill task. It's going to be a long drawn campaign, but it has to go on. And we are yet to convince the world about Kulbhushan Yadav. We have
done that, but nothing has been.
We had the confessions of Ahsanullah Ahsan, and of course we have now the dossier that we had submitted, and we have this new Johor Town case, and we have to convince all the major capitals that this is the problem that we have. And of course, we'll need to solicit the support of Turkey, of Malaysia, of China and Russia, and certainly OIC. And I think it will have to be done on the diplomatic level, and because unless we have the support, it will be very difficult for us to convince the world, because Pakistan alone cannot do it, because of course, as I said, we are not strong enough to convince the world on our own. We need the support of these friends that we have, and we should be able to convince them, and then of course reach out to the UN organization.
Do you think the Chinese support or the Turkish support, under they are also, you know, they're under a lot of pressure from the Western world, sir? Both these countries, including, okay, let's put Pakistan, the third country. Do you think they can muster that kind of a support and can be vocal enough, or you think their ideas would be declined again?
You see, we've had exemplary support from China in all our major issues. We have support from.
The point is China in a position to look after our affairs?
Certainly, because you see, when India creates trouble for Pakistan and Pakistan has sufficient proof, it is in Chinese interest as well that they should highlight that to the world and convince them that yes, this is what is happening over here, and the world needs to take notice of this thing. Similarly, Turkey is in a position whereas Turkey needs our support, and here is a situation where we need Turkey's support. And then we have Russia, because Russia is now looking for friends, and here is Pakistan, which is readily available. So I think it is again in Russia's interest to support Pakistan and its viewpoint on its relationship with India, that and the trouble that it is suffering because of the Indian designs. And of course, we have the OIC. While we may continue to say that it is of no consequence, but the fact is, outside the UN, it is the largest international group, and it has a position, it has a standing, and Pakistan should be able to convince its members.
Are we should be able to, but will we be able to? That's another question.
I think
the point is, sir, that most of these Middle Eastern countries, you talk about UAE, you talk about Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, and you can know there's a long list. They are under the influence of the Indians, and it's a fact.
Well,
so
while
in that particular case, sir, I mean, things
well,
are very
you
obvious.
see, they are more controlled by the Americans so far, and under the American directions, they accept Indian influence. And the fact is that now the world is changing. The Russians are reclaiming their earlier glory. China is in a position now to challenge America as a sole superpower, and with this and this is being witnessed by all these countries, that the Americans no longer are in a position where they used to be earlier on, and they are now in a position where they can pursue their own independent policies. And here is Pakistan has an opportunity, that these countries, most of these countries within the OIC are now in a position that they could ignore Indian or the American dictates and follow independent policy. More so when they realize that there is China, there is Russia, and they are far closer to them geographically even than America. And I think when we look at the general public sentiment in these countries, that supports Pakistan, and it will be in the interest of the governments in these countries to pursue this new line, and Pakistan can work on this, and I think it is there is great hope that this can bring the desired results for Pakistan.
It's a very important point. Now, Professor Saab, two major areas. One is about the military influence that Pakistan has. Obviously, there is this institution that is very organized. People talk about it. We've been winning so many awards, and the kind of sacrifices that Pakistan has given, even in the line of duty, I would say, through United Nations and deployment of our forces in Africa and so many other states. Number one, there is this influence is under attack by the Indians, and especially by certain political parties. Let me be very straight. I do not know on what grounds they are coming up with such statements, but yes, there is a problem. Number two, sir, also tell us about this visit we have been hearing that the Russian President Vladimir Putin will be visiting Pakistan. Earlier, if you remember, their foreign minister was in Pakistan. There was a very, very, I would say, positive and a very healthy visit, I would say. Now, sir, do you think that would also change the dynamics to a certain level, or things would remain the same?
Well, Faisal, the most important thing for Pakistan to be doing is to raise the level of strategic discourse with our friends and even the people who are not friendly towards Pakistan in terms of state sponsorship of terrorism by India against Pakistan. That has to become integral part of our conversation with the international community, with the individual countries and groups of countries, whether those are Security Council members or UN General Assembly or the OSCE, etc., etc. And particularly, I am saying this with tremendous concern that SCO countries whose main task is to secure the frontiers and encourage the discouraging of and encouraging the containment of the threat of cross-border terrorism in all its forms. So SCO is a forum in which we should bring up this issue of India's sponsorship of terrorism against Pakistan, and we should present each and every member of the SCO with those concerns. And I'm sure and in that regard, we will not only enjoy the support of China, but also there is a RAT institution which functions, whose main task is to discourage any form of terrorism anywhere in the region, particularly in the region of the SCO countries. Number three is I think we should not be sitting with our hand tied. There have been several references by my colleagues in which they have described Pakistan as a weak country. Yes, we may appear to be weak, but our military is very strong, and we should take advantage of the Indian internal fault lines, not simply because we want to pursue a policy of tit for tat, but we must hurt India where it matters, and for that we need to have proactive counter-terrorism response. And if it need be, we should also encourage the separatist feeling in India, particularly amongst the northeast of India, and so that Indians would, if we do this, so the Indians will not be getting away with murder. One reason India continues to do what it has been doing in terms of sponsoring terrorism against Pakistan is because Pakistan has never protested so strongly until now against these Indians' criminal acts. So yes, we should expose India, and we should talk tough to the Indians and let them know that if you persist with these policies, there are going to be consequences.
Professor, one more point, and that is a very interesting statement that's called tit for tat. You believe that whatever they are doing, we should apply the same formula on them? Dr. Saab?
Gee, I have no doubt that can be a tactical maneuver just to make sure that the Indians know that Pakistan has the capability where it
to
can
hit them inside India.
Yeah, absolutely. Because look, if a rogue state like Modi's India pursues a policy of cross-border terrorism, and Pakistan has the right to retaliate against this, because Indians have been hiding behind their accusation against Pakistan that Pakistan is the only one which sponsored terrorism, while the Indians, by saying this, they are getting away with murder. So I think we should tell the Indians very clearly that if you pursue this policy, if you persist with this policy, there are going to be strategic consequences for you, including Pakistan's right of hot pursuit deep inside the Indian territory.
I think that is a very important point, but that could lead to a full-scale war perhaps, or that could lead to another chapter where there could be a lot of problem for both the countries, for the region as well. Obviously, war itself is a problem, it's not a solution. But one important point, Hamid Khan Saab, and that is, as earlier mentioned by Dr. Saab and also AVM Saab, that this is going to continue because this has been on for quite some time. And this is something which is making us bleed, whether we admit it or we don't. Yes, it's a very resilient nation. We have done whatever we could have done. We have survived all the odds. But having said that, it seems that this is the time. The time has come now. And forget about, showing the true face of India to the entire globe, but it is not helping us, having any consensus. And secondly, when we talk about the current government in India, BJP, the kind of mindset they have, the kind of, in fact, mindset they have also developed over a period of the last 7-8 years, that is also very alarming, very threatening, not only for us, for the Indians as well, sir. That is going to be the major fault line in India. And I think high time to explore that, expose that, and capitalize on that. Because this thing is not going to stop, so we need to have a proper counter strategy. And secondly, sir, I think we have been failing consistently as far as marketing our original issue is concerned. Giving the dossiers, God knows where those are out now. The point is that if they slap you, punch them back. That should be the way forward, because the more they will be hurt, they will realize that this can't go on forever.
Yeah, absolutely right, Faisal. I mean, retaliation is our right against enemy and rogue state like India. There is no doubt about it. I fully agree. And on the another aspect, I would say that this is the time when Indian public and the common man has to wake up that what India is come to now, what Modi has done to India, where is India standing now economically and in the political stand in the world, because of all Modi's Hindutva policies. I mean, every sane political leadership, everybody in the world, they know one thing, that Modi is trying to establish a Hindu state with the country of over 25% of minorities. Then there are lower caste Hindus. So this is the time when Pakistan needs to, I agree with the Dr. Saab as well, that Pakistan not only needs to tell the world that what India is doing, yes, Pakistan has to take appropriate actions against, to counter the terrorism. But on the other hand, if we look into the current status, India is already having so many separatist movements that I always say that sooner or later, there will be many states going to emerge from India, and Modi will be known as the Gorbachev of India because of its own rogue state policies, because of its own agenda, which he tried to implement. I mean, he tried to implement, I always say, the Chanakya ideology of hundreds of years prior. This is not possible in 21st century. But as far as the role of Pakistan is concerned, yes, Pakistan Foreign Ministry has to be very active. Pakistan security forces has to be more vigilant and alert to keep pointing out and keep, I would say, eliminating all the enemies, proxies in the country and all the sleeping cells in the country, because we are facing a very third-class enemy who does not mind to use any kind of tactics against the country. And now this is the time, while India is,
I think a third-class enemy should be
popularity
treated in a third-class
Yes.
way, and a third-class approach should also be adopted against them. Simple as that.
That is the whole point. And now Modi has lost election in Bengal. Modi is in trouble in Uttar Pradesh and other upcoming elections. So that's why in coming days there are possibilities of many false flag, stunts by Indian media and Indian government against Pakistan to again exploit the emotions of Indian public against Pakistan. But this is the time when Indian public and especially Indian intellectual has to come forward to explain and expose internal threats to India by this fascist government of Modi. He is a purely a fascist, and he's following the footsteps of Hitler. It is absolutely clear in the world now. But now Pakistan's retaliation is our right. There is no doubt about it. And on the last note, I would like to say that again, China is always standing with us. Russia, we are having a very positive, future with the Russia in terms of our relations, in terms of our trade and everything. But when it comes to the terrorism, this is the war against Pakistan has to fight itself. Pakistan's security forces are more than capable to fight this war by a cunning, by a third-class enemy. And inshallah, we will come out of it as we came out of the war against terror. Now, this is a final, and I would say, a final time for Pakistan. And then, inshallah, there will be a very bright future for Pakistan after tackling this kind of cheap tactics by our enemy.
All right. Hamid Khan Saab says that this is the final countdown. Anyway, Hamid Saab, thank you so much. Professor Saab, it was a pleasure having you, sir. Thank you so much for your participation. And ABM Saab, it's always great to have you on the show, sir. And that's all we have for this up. I'll see you, inshallah, tomorrow at 8. Till then, you take good care. Khuda Hafiz.